discussion and examine different things.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys, but please help us get this out there. So this episode, as discussed in the promo video, we want to talk about the church and state, right? The church and politics. Is there a place in the church for politics? What do you think?
Should the church be involved in politics?
Yeah.
Should a pastor be a politician?
Yes.
I don't know, man. I feel like the Bible's called us to be disciples, not politicians.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. But at the same time, the Bible has given us values to stand up for.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes those values have to take a political avenue in order to get accomplished, right? Or to even get seen. Okay, so the whole reason that we want to discuss this is because in our local area, there is a church, right? Legacy Church, that's big in the news. Their pastor, Pastor Smotherland, is really strong on politics in his church. Like, there's videos that have leaked, and like he goes on a rant for like 10 minutes, dude, about his political views and his views of the church and where they're at, and even saying like, you know, he dislikes the governor and the whole COVID issues that are going on. To get it straight, like we've been really restricted, right? New Mexico, the COVID restrictions have been really tight. They were arguing with the whole church and the congregation that's allowed in the church, right? For Christmas, they had this huge service, and the video leaked, and there was way past capacity. I don't remember what the capacity was at the time, 10%, 15%, but it was way above it. Everybody was in there, shoulder to shoulder, no masks, right? So he's been in the political eye, right?
Spotlight. And they're not the only one, you know what I mean?
They're not.
And this, to mention that, you know, there's several instances like this across the country, and it reminds me of a reaction video that I seen in California where they were locked down, but like strip clubs are open.
Yeah.
And so the pastor of his church like changed his church to a strip club.
Like on paper, right?
On
like
paper,
LCC,
yeah. He
or
changed the strip
LLC.
club. He changed the church to a strip club on paper so they could have services.
And I think we shared that or whatever. And I saw this video, and like the pastor literally went on stage and took off like his coat, like his coat, and there was like strip music, like, and he was taking it off, and he would just take his top off and be like, "All right, time to worship, everybody," and then they start worshiping. But nonetheless, does politics belong in the church?
And if they do, what role does a Christian play? And then, like I said, that's going to be even hard because you just seen, I'm not going to, I take two guys, right? One guy left Legacy because they're too political. One guy went to Legacy because he's political. Not saying that either one of them is more closer to God, you know what I mean? But here's two believers, two guys that identify themselves as Christians. And I know them personally, so I know that they believe that we talked about in the first episode, like the closed fist beliefs. Like, you can interpret and all this stuff, but there's certain things that are closed fist. Like, I believe that Jesus was, those things. They believe the same thing across the board like that, but when it comes to this, the political stance, they're two different people.
If somebody is from Legacy, we would love to hear your comments. Like, put it in there, or even reach out to us, DM us, and we would love to get your guys' views.
Maybe even bring them on the
show, and you give us your stance, right? Like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read an article. It comes out of KOB News, which is a local news channel here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This was written back in February 25th. But long story short, Legacy has been in the news for a while. We talked about that Christmas service that they had, and it leaked. There was hundreds and hundreds of people.
It's a big church.
Shoulder to shoulder with no masks on, right? It leaked. But even since then, he's taken a stance, and they call their church services peaceful protests.
Yeah, because there was a time where you could only have so many people, or yes, it was either no service at all, so many people, and then during that time, you know, there was a lot of civil unrest, things going on in the country, and people were protesting, and it was like, well, why are people being allowed to do the protest but not gather in churches? And it was like, well, there's a peaceful protest, and so he called it a
Yeah.
peaceful protest.
And there's pieces I read where the governor was giving kudos to people that were protesting, right? Like that's their constitutional right, good for them.
Yeah.
Like we will do everything we can to support them, but yet whether you want to call it twisting it or whatever, he interpreted it. And Legacy Church now, you know how you go to church and they have like welcome Sunday fun day, like they have welcome to the peaceful protest, right? So then that helps them have a different capacity than what's authorized by the Department of Health for New Mexico. Smart.
But like seriously though, like just think just for a second, like you think of like what we've been called to do as Christians and submitting to authority and all these things. We're gonna go into a few verses here. Do you see like him doing that? Like he was taking a stance, like a godly stance, or was it being more like rebellious?
I don't know, man. Like there's some valid points in that we've seen. Like we've shared videos and we saw them back and forth, right? Like at what point do we take a stance and say no, government? Like we love Jesus.
I might almost have more respect if it was like, nah, we're still gonna have service. But it was kind of like you're mocking.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're mocking.
All right, so I'm gonna read this article. So it starts with in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's no question the pandemic and the governor's response to it are limiting individual freedoms for the sake of public health. Since the beginning, religious freedoms have been at the forefront. Strict limits of mass gatherings and church capacities have drawn concerns from religious groups and churches around New Mexico. However, one church is standing out among the rest in response to those rules. So I'll skip over this part where it talks about the Christmas service and they were fined like tens of thousands of dollars. And then the pastor said, keep fining us, whatever. We're not going to pay these fines, and regardless.
You better watch out. You're going to be able to buy those lights.
Uncle Sam be come getting. And then on January 3rd, Smotherland said, I just want to make this very clear. We're going to fight this. We're not paying them one penny. And then it goes into the peaceful protest part, right? It says, for many months, Legacy Church has labeled its church services as peaceful protests, implying that they should be treated like the other protests have been treated by the state. The peaceful protest language is found in signage outside church facilities and on its website. We have the right to peaceful protest. It doesn't say where or how or what time. It's just what we call it. So we're protesting. We're protesting every service that's allowed. It's allowed by the governor. It's allowed by the mayor. So Smotherland in a video posted to his Facebook. So yeah, that kind of just gives us a little, in a nutshell, of what's going on there with that. So that brings us to the question, right? Is there a place for politics in the church? Like, should pastors use the platform when ultimately the platform should be used to spread the gospel and to share the good news in Jesus and God, but yet he's strongfully, like, go check it out. Like, go to Legacy Online, YouTube, see it for yourself. Or should other pastors follow along and say, we have faith beliefs and the government is taking these away from us? What's the right answer?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I think this is sad to say, but I could probably tell you from my friends, right, the ones that left because they didn't want to hear the political stuff, and then the ones that came because they wanted to hear the political stuff. It's odd, I know, but I guarantee you, anybody, you could bring them in front of me in
Right.
the same scenario, and I can probably tell you how they voted. I can almost guarantee you. I can tell you how
Right.
they vote
based off of that political stance right there.
Yeah, based off of how they reacted to that.
Yeah.
I can tell you how they voted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then it goes back to like, well, this church has like that. This church has all the lights. Everything's going on because they want to attract people, right? They want to bring people in to hear the gospel. What if you're trying to attract people that have a political thing?
He's definitely done that. Like I will say that. Like people that are on that side have definitely been drawn to that church, and they're going to that church, and they're filling those seats, right?
Yeah.
So he's definitely starting something, and like I watched the video, right? And he's bashing the governor, bashing the new president. This video took place after the inauguration, and the crowd's cheering him on, right? So he's definitely molding the church to that, right? To that, definitely those his political stances. So where is God in the middle of this?
I don't know.
Like,
I think it's dangerous to say that God belongs to a political party, because I personally don't think that he does. I think society sometimes says that
this party believes in this, so
kinda,
it's more
yeah.
like.
Yeah, I think sometimes that happens a lot.
So I know we talked about this as well today, and you're about to read the passage of Romans 13, but here we are being defiant and rebellious to our leaders, and you brought up a good point. What was going on during this passage is that when this was.
Yes, so based off from what I know, like so Paul, right? Paul he's credited to writing 13 letters in the New Testament, 13 letters to
13 books.
Yeah, 13 books, and so it's thought that he had written Romans, and then there's a part where it talks about pray for the authorities and this and that. I think it's in Timothy, and Paul actually penned these verses during the reign of Emperor Nero and Caligula, if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm pretty sure I am. But they were some of the most ruthless tyrants of all time. You know what I mean? These aren't make-believe people. These are people that are referenced outside of the Bible as well. So do you want me to read the...
That was persecution.
Yeah, they were getting persecuted. Hardcore.
Yeah, can you read that passage?
All right. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he who does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God and the avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. I think the Bible is very clear on what it expects us to, like authority, right?
Yeah.
Be submissive to authority. I don't know, you know?
Like it or not, right? Like even the time where they came and asked Jesus about taxes, and he said, like, whose face is on that coin? Right? I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
And they're like, Caesar, and he's like, well, give Caesar what's Caesar's, right? Like, don't.
You gotta think
that's the authority right now. Like,
yeah. You gotta think like is what's being asked of us, like, is it making you jeopardize?
Stumble, right?
Yeah. Are you stumbling your faith? Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Like, are you compromising the gospel for
staying at home for a little bit so the vaccine and people can get healthy? And because there is numerous situations that I saw on the news, other states, but there was outbreaks at churches, right?
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, this virus was real. Like, I had the virus.
Yeah.
I had it back in October. I wasn't severely sick, but I knew I had it. Like, there was something about it. I had headaches.
Well, your boy even says that
in that video.
Yeah, he says in the video, he's like, I'm not arguing that the virus isn't real. He's like, I've had really close people to me die.
Yeah.
But he went against everything else.
It is, but at the same time, as leaders of a church, you're a shepherd of people. Does the shepherd bring people into harm's way, or does he lead them away from the harm? Right? So you can say people are coming in the church not wearing masks, and it's their own religious right to do so, but as a leader of an organization or a church, shouldn't you shelter them from this sickness? I don't know. Right? Or is it free will and free religious practice? It might not be the same, like we were upset or sad, or you missed the fellowship and the congregation. Absolutely, you do. But I don't believe that right now that the government was trying to stop us from practicing our faith. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I don't. You know, I can't I can't answer that honestly because I don't know. I don't know if it was a shot at oh, this is
Trying to overthrow our
the
Christianity
church,
and
yeah.
the church.
That like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's instances where I've seen, you know, like in public school systems or, you know, certain things where you can't talk about those certain things, so I can't. I'm
That's
not
why
sure.
we're talking about this.
Yeah.
We are examining it.
Yeah, we examined it. But to say, like, you look at, like, right, you look at, he lost some people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He lost some people, but he gained some people.
Sure.
So there's division, right? There's division, whether it's, like, you know what I mean? So who's God siding with? If Christ came down, boom, right now, like, whose side would he be on?
All sides. He came and died for everybody, right?
Yeah.
No, and once again, like we go back to this, and this is to spike discussion, to examine these concepts. As a church, do we take a stance politically, or do we not?
So like we mentioned him before from our one of our favorite YouTubers, Ruslan KD. He calls himself politically agnostic, right? And I kind of feel like that. I feel like that myself. I'm politically agnostic, but if you listen to him, right? If you listen to him, I feel like he leans more towards one side, right? And so, do you think that the Christian can successfully actually be politically agnostic? I feel personally.
I honestly, go ahead.
I feel like I am,
Okay.
but I feel like once I start saying so much, society would put me on one side. You know what I mean? And maybe that's what I'm doing to him.
I will be honest and transparent that I have voted both sides.
Yeah.
Right? Like since I've been able to vote, I've voted Democrat, Republican. Like I haven't been traditional one side. I have viewed who I think was best for that position. So
I feel like the Christian's got to be careful because you can. Paul says, "I became all things to all people so that he may win some." And I feel like once you strongly align yourself with a political party, that you've automatically
close
cut
off
off.
the other end.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Unless you have like built some strong personal relationships. You know what I mean? Like I have people that are close to me, right? That aren't necessarily Christians, and we're close, and we can talk about political things and nobody get hurt. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're still. I don't know. It's good.
Now I will say this, right? Regardless of what political party you're on, I do believe it's the job of the church to be biblical.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that policy is, or whatever this stance is, whether it's pro-life, pro-choice, whether it's homosexuality, whatever it is, right? What does the Bible say? And that's the side you should choose at the end of the day. What does the Bible say? I go back to not traditions, not religion, but what does the Bible say? And that's my political stance, the Bible.
Well, I'm not to go because I know we've been talking a lot, but you think even in the time when the Jews were waiting on the Messiah, right? Because they were, like, the Romans were, what's the word? Occupying
Right.
their area, and so they were looking for someone that was going to come and
Overthrow the
government, you know?
That's a great point.
And
he
instead he was like, nah, man.
I didn't come to overthrow the government.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is just to examine and for you to make the decision, right? To you, maybe you're going to go online and check this out and research it, and maybe you haven't even really thought about it, like, where do I stand politically, and how is that intertwined with the church, right?